Hello Infiniteers! Today we are going to finish my Tron toy box because all we have left to do is to hook up the logic for the final battle with the MCP. But before we get started, I want to let you know that this will be my last video for a little while. There are still some images and videos that I need to upload to the Disney Infinity Archive project, and then next week one of my all-time favorite RPGs is coming out on the Nintendo Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles X, the definitive edition, which has some new story elements and some new features, so I want to take some time to play through that game again, and that means I'll be taking a break for a couple of months, but I am sure I will be back again at some point, because I always come back to Disney Infinity. I've been working on a couple of new toy box designs, and when I get one finished, I will return with a new series for you. But for today, let's finish up the MCP battle. Now, we already implemented the rotating shields that protect the MCP in our previous episode, so now we just need to implement the player's attacks and the MCP's counterattacks. So let's review the creativitoys that we're going to need, and I placed everything we need ahead of time. So I put a trigger area out here, right on top of the last rail slide leading into the MCP core. And we have an enemy wave generator connected to 5 locators down there. And I have 2 locators over here with a little blue dot facing towards the entrance. I've got a locator over here, a locator here, and one up here. I also have placed the slingshot. This is out of the Instant Fun category. And I placed a locator on top of the slingshot. And also I put one down here temporarily just to make it easier to connect to. When we're all done, we'll move this to where it needs to be. And then on the MCP, I have placed a rail slide target, or rail target point. And I placed it in the mouth, centered right there. I've also placed a locator that you can see here, and one here, and one up here, and one on the opposite side from each of those. And these are going to be for the explosion at the end. We can delete the repeater and the buttons from last time because we don't need those anymore. And then up here we have 2 sets of toys. This set is for the player's attacks. This set is for the MCP's counterattacks. And for the player's attacks we have a counter, a effects generator, timer, action enforcer, and I have a button up here temporarily that we're going to use to reset the counter so we can test this out. And on this side we have a time delayer, and another time delayer, and another time delayer, and a logic gate, 2 effects generators, and a kill switch. Okay? And so this is what we have for our final battle. And it looks like a lot of toys, but we'll hook these up part at a time, and you'll see it's not so bad. So don't get intimidated or be intimidated by that. So let's start with the trigger area that the player will come through as they enter the MCP core. This is what's going to kick off all of the stuff that's going on in the MCP. So we'll do a new logic connection when entered by player any. First thing we will do is come over to our enemy wave generator and generate the wave. And to save time, a little bit of time ahead of time, I connected it to all 5 of those locators, as I said, with a new locator connection. And I configured the wave to use 2 elite Sakarans and 3 large Sakarans. All right? And under the properties, all you need to do is take the generation delay to 0. And I connected these two locators down here first so that the elite Sakarans would appear there. And hopefully, if there are no delays in the enemy generation, the large Sakarans will appear in here at these three locators. And we only want to do this once, so on the enemy wave generator, a new logic connection. When the wave is generated, we'll come over to our trigger area and deactivate it. And then the other thing this trigger area needs to do is to start up the MCP. And so on the trigger area, a new logic connection, when entered by player any, we'll come over to our logic gate that we hooked up last time that kicks off the MCP, and we'll input into that. All right. And there we go. That starts the shields rotating. That starts the eyes glowing. And so he's ready to go when the player gets over here. And the last thing we will do on this trigger area is a new logic connection when entered by player any. I want to reset the counter, and I'll explain why in a little bit. This is something I did not do before. I'm making a little change here from the playthrough video, but I'll talk about that when I get there, which won't be too long. Okay, so that's everything this trigger area needs to do. It kicks off the enemy wave generator, it starts up the MCP, and it resets the counter. And at this point, we're done with the trigger area. So the player battles the enemies that are in here, and then they come up here to the catapult, to the slingshot. And this is where the player starts attacking the MCP. And their point of attack is the rail target point. Okay? So this is what's going to kick off the player's strikes on the enemy. And what's going to keep track of the number of hits and really the MCP's health is this counter. And this is where we're going to make a change, because last time I had this counting up to 20. And as I've thought about it since then, it would make more sense to count down from 20 so the player has an idea of how much health they have left to go. So the target count isn't going to matter this time. We're going to leave this on. We're going to set the reset count to 20. Okay? And then I want to connect up this button to do a reset on the counter, because I don't want to have to come out here and go through that trigger area and battle all those enemies to test this out. I just want to test out the MCP when we're done. So we'll come over to our button and push it. That resets the counter, as you can see at the top of the screen there, to 20. Now at this point you can delete that button if you want. We're done with it. Okay, so this is set up. So whether the player attacks with their identity disc or whether they use the slingshot, they need to hit this target. And so on the rail slide target, we're going to do a new logic connection. When this is hit, we're going to come up to our counter, and we're going to decrement the counter by 1. So every time they hit that, it's going to knock a point of health off the MCP. Okay? All right, and then on the counter, they'll just keep doing that until the counter reaches 0. So on the counter, we'll do a new logic connection. When 0 is reached, we're going to do a few things. I want to play an explosion over the MCP to kind of let the player know that they defeated the enemy. And so for that, we're going to come over to our effects generator. We're going to play once out of the explosions category a huge explosion. Okay? And I want this to be at the locators that I placed out there. So let's connect up our effects generator to these locators. And the order of them doesn't really matter. I suppose I could have hooked these up ahead of time, but since I didn't, I have to do this now. But this won't take very long. And even though the MCP will still be there after the explosion clears, I just like the finale to it. It's just a great way to let the player know they won. And at that point, the enemy, the MCP will be lifeless. Shields won't be moving, the eyes will be dark, and all of that. Alright, so that's the effects generator there. Now there's no sound associated with that, so the other thing we want to do on the counter is a new logic connection. When 0 is reached, we want to go over to our sound effect generator, which is way over here. And we want to play an explosion sound effect. And you find that under the action category. It's the large explosion. All right. And then the other thing I want to do, because the player is going to be standing on the slingshot, I kind of want to give them a moment to maybe get off the slingshot. So we're going to use a time delayer before we do the rest. So on the time delayer, I'm going to hook this up for a 3-second delay. It'll also give time for the explosion sound effect to finish. So on the counter, a new logic connection. When 0 is reached, we will start the 3-second time delayer. And on the time delayer, when that goes off, when the delay is completed, we'll come over to the action enforcer, have all players celebrate, and we'll also play our end of mission sound effect. So when the delay is completed, we'll head over to the sound effect generator once again. And we will play our musical fanfare that I like to play when the player accomplishes some mission. And there we go. That is just about it for the MCP, for the player's attack on the MCP. Last thing we want to do, of course, is shut down the MCP itself. So on the counter, a new logic connection. When 0 is reached, we will input into the other logic gate down here that shuts off the MCP. And one more thing, we should hide that rail target. So a new logic connection. When 0 is reached, turn off the rail target. And that shouldn't come back on, but sometimes I think actually it might. So just to make sure, we can go ahead and hook up our time delayer here. So after 3 seconds, in case this thing does turn itself back on, we'll make sure it goes off and stays off. Alright, so that's it for the player's attack. Everything there for the player is pretty straightforward. Like I said, they can use their identity disk or they can use this. They're probably going to use this because the identity disk will be very difficult to get through these shields. Alright, now for the MCP's counterattack. And what we're going to do for that is when the player enters the slingshot. So we'll do a new logic connection. When this is entered, we're going to kick off a time delayer up here. And we're going to give the player some time to launch their attacks. before the MCP strikes back. And so on the counter, we'll set the properties here to be 20 seconds. That should be long enough. And when that goes off, we want to give the player a little bit of warning that an attack is coming. So we're going to play a little electrical effect here at this locator to do that. And then that'll give them a warning that it's coming, so they can hop off of that. And after they do, then if they're still standing on that thing, we want to activate the kill switch. Okay? And so we'll use this other effects generator for a lightning bolt. And so we need to set all of these up. So we're going to give a couple of warnings, a couple seconds apart. So that's what these two time delayers are for. So we'll set each of these to 2 seconds. And then this effects generator will connect up to this locator. And this effects generator for the lightning bolt will hook up to the other one. Okay. And then the last piece of this is if the player gets off of this thing, we don't want them to get zapped if they've successfully exited that. And so that we're going to use this logic gate to tell us if the player is on or off the slingshot. Okay, and so what we're going to do here is we want this to be in the closed state initially. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter because if the player never hops on the slingshot, this will never get activated. Okay. And so that won't really matter. So let's see how we want to do this. All right, we already hooked up the slingshot to this, so let's start from this point. Actually, let's start from here. So a new logic connection. When the delay is completed and the 20 seconds have gone by, we want to let the player know that it's coming. So we're going to come over here to this time delayer and start the delay. And we're also going to kick off that electrical effect. So when that time delayer goes off, we'll come over to our effects generator here. And we're going to play once out of the electrical effects category the radial energy impact. Okay? And that'll place a little electrical thing right at the top of the slingshot here where they can't miss it. And then 2 seconds later, we're going to give them another one. So when this goes off, a new logic connection when the delay is completed, we'll play that same visual effect again. The radial energy impact. Okay? And we'll kick off the next time delayer to wait another 2 seconds. So the players had 2 warnings at this point. And then when this goes off, new logic connection, when the delay is completed, we're going to input into this gate. And on output from the gate, we're going to go over to the kill switch, and we are going to defeat player. We'll defeat all the players. So if anybody is standing on that slingshot, they're all going to get zapped. All right? And the only way to prevent that is to get off the slingshot. So on the slingshot, we'll do a new logic connection. When this is exited, we will close this logic gate. And that way, the signal will not make it through to the kill switch. Now, when the player when the player resumes their attack, we want to reopen this switch. Okay, and so we will do that when they enter the slingshot. So when this is entered, not only will we kick off this time delayer, but we'll also reopen the gate. Okay. And the other thing this time delayer will do is not only kill them, but we need to play the visual effect that actually kills them. So, new logic connection. When the delay is completed, we'll come over to this effect generator. We will play once out of the electrical effects category, Lightning Strike 1. Okay. And now we can move this locator onto the platform here, onto the slingshot, because that's where we want the lightning bolt to go. And another thing I thought would be interesting or helpful is when they enter the slingshot to play a text message. So, new logic connection. When the player enters this, we'll have the MCP say something. So we'll come over to our text displayer. And he's going to give them a warning. So on our text displayer, we're going to go down to the negative category. And under here, he's going to say halt. So he's warning them, don't do it. And of course, it's too late because they're already on it. So they start attacking, and then they get the warning flashes from this effects generator, and then finally the lightning strike. Okay, I think that is everything. Let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to do? Oh yeah. Let's also play a text message on the counter. So when 0 is reached on the counter, and there's another thing I want to do too, but we'll do this first. Play a text message as well as the explosion to let the player know they've beaten him. So we're going to have the MCP say something else. And again, under the negative category, we'll have him say, no! You weren't supposed to win. Now, one more change that I want to make. And this is from one of the comments that I received on episode 1 from KTune4725. He suggested that it might be good to restore some of the MCP's health when the player dies. Because if you remember in the playthrough video, I stayed on the slingshot, or I talked about it, that you could just stay here and let the lightning bolt kill you and then resume your attack, and there wasn't really a consequence for that. And so his idea was that if the player does decide to do that, and the MCP actually succeeds in killing the player, that he should have some of his health restored. So we'll come over to this logic gate. And on the logic gate, a new logic connection on output. So if the signal manages to get through here and kill the player, we're going to come back over to the counter, and we're going to increment the counter by 5. And that will restore some of the MCP's health. And that could actually go above 20. So it's another reason why you want to get off this thing, because you don't want to lose your progress. So I like that suggestion, and I thought it was really good, and I wanted to incorporate that in my battle. And that's another reason why I decided to have the counter count down from 20 instead of counting up to 20, because you can see that way that you did lose progress. And I like that. All right, so I think that is everything. Let me just double check my notes here. All of the locators are hooked up. All of the sound effects are hooked up. Yeah, I think that's it. So let's go ahead and save our toy box, and then we'll try this out. We'll go ahead and save it over this one. I could fast forward, but this shouldn't take too long. And this way I can, since I made that change and we're having the counter count down, I want to make sure I test this for you so it works. All right, so we'll come over here and start up the MCP. And there we go. By the way, there is no way for the player to get out of that pit if they jump into it. If you want, you could put a teleporter in there to get the player out, but I'm not going to do that. All right, so here we go. Oops, let's see. Oh yeah, pull back on this. And why did these shields stop? That's not good. We need to figure out why that happened. Did that counter reach 0? That shouldn't have happened. Well, let me go offline and see what this thing did. And, well, the lights are still going. That should not have... caused the shields to stop. That's interesting. Well, let me go offline and I'll look at this and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I figured out what the problem is. The logic is fine. When I was playing with the slingshot, trying to remember how to work it, the bombs went down below, and they hit the button down there, which triggered it and turned off the path. So, we're just going to move these things below the terrain temporarily here, or well, let's get them up out of the way for the moment, so that I don't accidentally hit these buttons. I'm going to need this one, though, to start the thing up again. Alright, and then we can move this up out of the way. So, shouldn't be any chance of me accidentally hitting those buttons now. Okay, once again. And it might be good to cycle through this and try to find something that works a little better. Alright, so there we go. I didn't die, so that's good. Hey, they got through the shields. You can see how the counter is counting down, so I think that's helpful. Let's stay on here this time and see what happens. And the health went back up to 18. So yes, it's a good idea to get off this thing. I'm not doing so good here. Of course, you spend a little bit of your time getting dialed back in on this thing. Yeah, I like the fact that it counts down better, because this is giving me much better feedback as to whether or not I'm actually making progress. And I know how many more hits I have to make. Of course, if you want, you can set your counter to a higher number or a lower number. If you think 20 is too many, you can change it. If you've got little kids that don't like it that long, or if you want a longer battle. It'd be nice if the MCP could do a little bit different kind of attack too, besides just the slingshot, because it is kind of easy to avoid. I thought about maybe spawning some enemies or something up here after the lightning bolt, and you could do that, and then battle some enemies, and then hop back on here and attack him directly. That would mix things up a little bit. And that shouldn't be too difficult to implement. Okay, one more hit. Yay! There we go. With that, the MCP is beaten. I haven't figured out yet, though, how to stop that from happening. I guess I could throw a few more logic gates in there that I could use to stop that from happening, but that would make the logic overly complicated, and I think this is sufficient. It's kind of like one last little parting shot from the MCP to try to get you. But that's it for the battle with the MCP, which means that this toy box is done. At this point, you can move all of the Creativitoys below the terrain or someplace where they cannot be seen, and you're all done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this series and my Tron toy box. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments if you built this for yourself and what kind of changes you might have made in your own version. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more of my toy box designs, and that way you'll know in the future when I release a new toy box. In the meantime, keep building and keep dreaming, and remember, if you can dream it, you can do it.